Hi everyone, this is Teacher Andy from Proactive ESL here. Proactive ESL is the place where we actually activate your English, be it grammar, functions, topics, or other skills. Today we're going to be looking at a grammar topic, tag questions. Tag questions are usually seen by students as a relatively easy topic. It is true, they're easy, kind of easy in writing, but the problem is tag questions are rarely used by students in conversation, where they are actually mostly used. So what's the point in knowing something without actually being able to use it, right? Today, we will look at why this is so by actually using the language you already have in your mind. Let's do it. Let's activate your English. Everyone. Today again here in Proactive ESL with Teacher Andy. Today we're going to be looking at tag questions. The objective is going to be prepare for the online class. We'll schedule a little bit later on. And the level is upper intermediate, but if you've seen tag questions before, you should be okay. What are we going to do today? First, we're going to do some exercises just to have you remember what tag questions are all about. I know you have them in your mind, but cannot use them for speaking. So we'll do a few of those. And after this, we will look at the basic grammar for tag questions, which you already know. And we don't want to repeat it, but we just want to make you use your English as much as possible. And the main point is going to be looking at some of the puzzles of why students do not use tag questions when they are in conversation. After having a look at the problem of intonation, we will do some speaking exercises focused specifically on trying to make you use the tag questions in conversation by setting up some situations. And once we do these exercises, I'll leave you some homework that you can work with so that you can prepare at home for the online class that we will try to schedule later on. And when you do this homework, we will prepare it for the online class, and at that time we will correct it when we start it. So let's go ahead and start. Let's look at tag questions, and the first part is going to be the different kinds of questions. First, we're going to look at the different types of questions. The first ones are direct questions. For example, we have what time is it, or are you okay? Remember, if you have examples like what time is it, you have WH questions with where, when, who. And if you have examples like are you okay, these are yes, no questions. Other examples are do you like chocolate? And you answer yes or no. Are you okay? Yes, I am. No, I'm not. Or do you like chocolate? Yes, I do. Or no, I don't. Then we have indirect questions. Indirect questions are the ones that are a little bit more advanced, but even if you're intermediate, you have already seen examples. An example is what time is it? When it's an indirect question, it becomes do you know what time it is? Finally, we have tag questions, which is the focus of our lesson today. And for tag questions, we have an example. The example is, it is 5 already, isn't it? Remember, tag question just means that the question comes at the end, and we're going to focus on how to use them in the next slides. So this is our first exercise. And the objective of this exercise is to start to think about tag question and use them without me having to explain the grammar first. You already have a lot of language in your head because you've gone to many classes, and this is not like another YouTube video where I just speak and speak and speak for 20 minutes and you don't produce. The aim of these videos is for you to actually use the language. Let's try to produce the language, and let's try to be proactive with our English, okay? The objective of the exercise is for you not to write the answers, but just looking at the video, pausing it, try as quickly as you can to come up with the correct answer. Don't write it, because remember, tag questions are for conversation. Once you write it, once you have the correct answer, try to say the tag question out loud. Don't just look at the video and just keep in your mind the answer. Just say it out loud. Again, for example, number 1, if you've said you've called the movers, look for the answer. Again, it's H, haven't you? Don't just feel glad that you did it. Just say you've called the movers, haven't you? Okay? Now this is our second exercise. It's an exercise that you might find using tag questions at work. Again, the most important thing for the exercise is pause the video, try to complete it. Do not write the answers. Try to think about the answers. Take your time, and once you're ready, say the tag question out loud, not in your mind, so that you feel that you're actually using the tag question. Now, don't worry about making mistakes. Don't worry, is he going to give me the answers? What you should do is try to focus on using the language. The answers I'll give them to you, but for now, just focus on using the language. I have a third example. In this example, I want you to imagine you're out with your friends. Remember, tag questions are used a lot in informal conversation, and here you are with your friends. And what I want you to do is think about 5 tag questions you would actually use in this situation. Again, don't worry about writing them down. Don't write them down. And again, don't worry about having the perfect tag question. Just think about using different tag questions. If you're more intermediate, try to use present, past, future. If you're more upper intermediate, go ahead, use some modals and even use present perfect or even past perfect. Great. So the objective for this slide is to actually look at the basic grammar. We're not going to go into detail because the idea is I want you to use the language, right? Now, remember, tag questions are frequent in conversation in English, and they exist in other languages. You have them in Spanish, you have them in French, you have them in Mandarin. In Spanish, you say no es cierto. In French, you say n'est pas. In Mandarin, you can say 是吗, 是吗. So the idea is we have in all languages a certain kind of tag question, but the difficulty in English is that tag questions use the auxiliary. And that is tough. That is the reason why they're upper intermediate. If we look at the basic grammar, remember you have 2 possibilities. The first possibility for the basic grammar is you have an affirmative statement. And then if you have an affirmative statement, you have to use a negative auxiliary and then add the subject pronoun at the end. This is the tag, right? An example of this is, for example, Mary went to work, didn't she? The verb is went, which is in the past, so we need to use the negative auxiliary in the tag. And then we have Mary, but we can't use Mary. We use the subject pronoun. For Mary, the subject pronoun is she. So again, the statement, which is affirmative, is Mary went to work. And then for the tag question, we use the negative auxiliary, didn't, and then we use the subject pronoun she. Completely read, you have it like this. It's Mary went to work, didn't she? You can also have another example. The other example is when you have the opposite. You can have a negative statement. If you have a negative statement, then you use the positive auxiliary, and then you also add the subject pronoun. For example, the same example we did before, but now negative. If I say Mary didn't go to work, then I have to use the affirmative auxiliary, and the affirmative auxiliary is did. And again, for Mary, you have the subject pronoun. The subject pronoun again is she. If we read it completely out loud, then the example is Mary didn't go to work, did she? The most important thing is to remember that English uses tags with auxiliaries, and this is why it's a little bit difficult for students. So remember, tag just means that it comes at the end of the sentence. That's why it's a tag question. And finally, I can ask you, you understood the tag question, didn't you? Or you didn't understand. Tag question, did you? You understood, didn't you? Or you didn't understand, did you? So now we're going to be looking at some puzzles. The idea is for you to think about some questions related to tag questions. If you can answer these questions, you will be better prepared to actually use them. What we're going to do is you're going to just I'm going to read the question for you. Just pause the video and try to answer. Okay, then we'll look at some of the answers. Question number 1 is this one. Students rarely use tag questions in spontaneous conversation. Why? You can pause the video and try to find the possible answer. I believe that one of the answers is that students are used to using tag questions in writing, or in tests. if you use them for that, they seem very easy, right? You just look at the auxiliary, at the verb, and then you just complete the tag question. But the problem is they're used in conversation. So we have to start to get away from the paper, okay? So that's question number one. Question number two is this one. If tag questions are easy in writing or tests, then why is this an upper intermediate topic? You pause the video and try to come up with some answers yourself. So actually, one of the reasons that this is an upper intermediate topic, although students think it's easy, is primarily because we use the auxiliaries in English. Remember, in different languages, for example, in Spanish, you say no es cierto, in French, we say n'est pas, and in those languages, we never use the tag question with auxiliaries. We just have an expression that we use. It doesn't matter if it's present, past, future. If this is one of your languages, then of course you're going to have a difficulty trying to use the tag questions. You have to think if it's went, then it's did. If it's future, then you'll have to remember. If it's have had or whatever, you'll have to be able to come up with the auxiliary quickly. And in a conversation, this is even more difficult. That's why we have to move away from the paper. Okay? Then question number 3 is this one. Why do tag questions change intonation? What does that mean? You can pause the video and try to think of some possible answers. So this question is really tough. This one I believe is one of the more difficult questions related to tag questions. So we're going to dedicate a slide to it in a few seconds and we'll look at the question more in depth, okay? But think about it. Then the final question is this one. Have you heard lots of tag questions in movies or TV programs or any other situation where you actually listen to English? Pause the video and try to think about it. So yes, actually, when we watch movies, you will find lots of examples of tag questions because they're very frequent in conversation, generally in informal conversation. So next time that you watch a movie or next time that you watch a TV show, and if you're actually using closed caption, you will be able to see them in use and you will start to have a feel of why they're used so much in conversation. Okay? Remember, we use our language outside the institution, outside the classroom, because language is a living thing and we have to participate in these living things so that we're able to feel comfortable and actually use the language proactively. Okay? Cool. So, to sum up, why are tag questions so important? There are many reasons, but these ones are the most important. Number one, they're frequently used in conversation. Remember, we learn a language to be able to use it, and we should try to learn it so that we feel comfortable when we speak with other people, right? The point is not just to have a lot of information in our heads and not feel stress when we try to produce. It's the contrary. We have to try to, when we learn a topic, be able to use it so that when we are in a real situation, English comes out more fluently, more easily, and you feel comfortable. What's the point of learning something if you're stressed about it, right? We have to, many people want to learn a language to try using conversation. That's why tag questions are so important. Number two, in contrast to direct questions, they bring a sense of proximity, of interest. They bring you closer to me. Do you understand why these are so important when we have a conversation? It's not the same thing to say, do you like chocolate? When I say, you like chocolate, don't you? Or I can say, you like chocolate, don't you? And when we use the tag question, and that's why they're used so much in conversation, it's kind of nice because you feel closer to the person who is speaking. Number three is because we have the up-down intonation, it allows for many meanings. Again, we'll look at that in a second, okay? And finally, they're not really important for exam. It's not like you're going to have the TOEFL or the IELTS and then you'll have a list of tag questions because they assume that it's so easy for an exam that you will never find them there. But the point is, we're trying to use it so that we are productive with the language that we learn. Okay? So now we're going to be looking at the intonation of tag questions, which is the most important part of the questions. Remember, you have two kinds. One, the intonation goes up, right? And with one, the intonation goes down. So you have up, 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 and down, 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 down. Sorry about that. So again, let's look at each of them and then we'll try to understand how they work. So first you have the up intonation, and this is really like a normal direct question. You expect an answer, you want a yes or no. So for example, I can say number one, you like chocolate, don't you? And I go up in the intonation. What I want is for the other person to answer yes I do or no I don't. This is the basic idea. In example number two, you have I am a great student, aren't I? So again, I go up, and again, the possible answer is yes, you are, no, you aren't. Okay. And number three, Peter can come, can't he? Again, I go up, and the answer that you expect is yes, he can, or no, he can't. Right? Again, usually like a normal yes, no question. Then the question is, if they're the same as a direct question, then why do we use tag questions? Why don't we go ahead and say, for example, do you like chocolate? Why do I go and say to all the trouble of saying, hey, you like chocolate, don't you? Well, I think that the main reason is that tag questions are more conversational, even if they are like a normal question. When I say, do you like chocolate? It's a very direct question, it's not very conversational. And if I say, you like chocolate, don't you? It's the opposite. It is very conversational. It's like I want to draw you in. I want to ask you, and I want you to participate in the conversation. So also when we have the tag question with the intonation that goes down, right? This is very different, right? You do not want an answer. What you want is to make a comment. The idea is that you share the information. You want to have a conversation. For example, right? If I say it is raining again, isn't it? The basic idea is that we're both together looking out the window. It's raining, it's pouring down, right? And it's obvious to you and me that it is raining, right? So why on earth would you say it is raining, isn't it, right? Why would you make a tag question in those circumstances? You don't want an answer. So the basic idea is that you want to draw the person into the conversation. You want to be very polite, very formal, very sort of bring the person close to you. And by saying that, although the information is there, you can actually do it. Or for example, if I say Mary is a teacher, isn't she? Again, the same idea. We can be in a situation where we're both in the classroom. Mary is in front of the classroom. She is actually the teacher. And again, what I want to do is I want you to share with you this commentary. Finally, if I say something like this, you think you're handsome, don't you? And I go the intonation down, with the intonation down, then the same idea. I'm looking at you, you're looking at yourself in a mirror, and it's kind of obvious that the person thinks that they're very handsome. So again, you're not asking the person to confirm it or not. You're not going up. You want to say, you think you're handsome, don't you? And you go down. And again, this is the basic idea. You want to have a commentary, and you do not even expect an answer for that. Now, what I want you to try to do is to try to think of some examples where you can have the same grammar, right? But you can go up and down. And again, think about the difference in the situation. For example, I can say, you like chocolate, don't you? Or you like chocolate, don't you? I can go up and down. Now, think of when you would use one and when you would use the other. And we're going to start using these tag questions, not only now with the grammar that we already learned, but now we're going to use them with the intonation, which is the much more difficult part to think about. Okay, great. So let's remember that what we're going to try to do is actually use the language. What's the point in my doing a YouTube video where I just speak for 20 minutes telling you how to use the language, what expressions you use? The point here is for you to actually, through this video, use the language. Start to be productive using English. So I created this exercise for you. It's called How Well Do You Know Your Teacher? In this case, Teacher Andy. Here we go. That's me. And the idea is, it seems easy because now I'm just going to give you a set of about 10, 12 statements and tag questions. And it should be easier because I've actually given you the tag question at the end. You don't even have to think about the tag question. What you have to do is you have to think about a good question where you actually have a conversation, thinking about asking me different kinds of things, probably not personal stuff, but different kinds of things that you might ask anybody in a conversation. Okay, so the point here is it's not that easy because, as you can see now, I have created each exercise to have a different kind of intonation. You cannot use the same example for each one. You have to be able to go up or go down depending on whether you want to have a question that is similar to a yes no question, right? And you need an answer like yes or no. Or you go down in the intonation if what you're trying to do is to make an obvious commentary, or if you are trying to have a guess, right? So it's not the same thing. Remember when we say, you like chocolate, don't you? Or you like chocolate, don't you? Going up and down, completely different idea for tag questions. Again, pause the video, try to do the exercise, and remember, don't write it. Try to do the tag questions, even if it takes a little bit longer. Don't write them, and once you're good to go, try to do them in an oral fashion, okay? So here we have another exercise for you to try to practice tag questions in a conversation. The exercise is called how about a coffee with your dad? And you have to try to come up with 5 tag questions, but now it's a little bit different. We did one before with your friends. Now what I want you to do is I want you to mix it up, and I want you to try to use different auxiliaries. Try to use past, try to use future, try to use have or present perfect, so that we don't only use the verb to be, right? Verb to be, verb to be, verb to be, very basic. We need more intermediate, upper intermediate English, right? And not only that, you have to be able to use the auxiliary, but also you have to be clear about the intonation. Remember, if you want to make the tag question and it goes up, then it's because you're asking a question. But if you want to make a comment, then you should have the intonation go down, okay? So what I want you to do is look at the video. This is it. And what I want you to do is, once you've looked at the video, pause the video on YouTube, and without writing, try to come up with 5 tag questions that you can actually use in a conversation, okay? So as always, we have a final set of exercises that you will do at home. These ones we will correct once we have our online class using Zoom, which is the app that we usually use. And we have 4 or 3 or 4 types of exercises that you will do. The first one is from Grammar Express, where you will be able to actually write down and practice in conversations the tag questions. This is number 1. And then we have an interesting exercise to try to practice the pronunciation of tag questions, which is called Intonation Monopoly. Again, do them at home, because remember, the time that we have in class, we're basically using it, because it's so limited, to try to activate and to actually use the language that you already know. And the time you have at home, where you have a lot of time, you can take as much time as you want to fill out the exercises and actually complete the homework. Third exercise is from a book called Side by Side. And in this exercise, again, you have a conversation, which we will try to do again when we have our online class. So again, just remember, if you finish the exercises that I sent to your email, then do not just do them in writing. Remember, we have to try to do the exercises that you have finished. Once again, orally, try to say them out loud. It doesn't matter if your pronunciation is perfect. It doesn't matter if the grammar is perfect. Maybe your tag questions have a few problems. Forget about that. What we need is for you to get into the habit of actually saying the words, and that will make you feel much more comfortable once you're in a normal conversation, and you won't have the papers that you usually have in your mind to actually produce, and not feel so stressed as we always do, okay? So just remember, we're gonna set up the online class using a specific app that's called Zoom, and it's at zoom.us. You don't have to do anything. You can just download the app onto your phone or to your desktop or laptop, and you don't have to do anything. I'll arrange it. I'll try to figure out the schedule that works for both of us, and here is the app itself. There you go. So download it, and we'll get in touch. Remember to contact me at proactiveesl gmail.com. So I hope that you were able to understand a little bit more about tag questions and that you will be able to start using them in conversations. Remember, that's the most important thing. What can I say? Again, thanks. And to end this session, I will see you next time, won't I? And remember, look, I went down because I'm not asking you a question. I'm pretty sure that you will be back here. And remember, with Proactive ESL, with Teacher Andy, we activate your English. Take care. So now what I want you to do is look at these graffitis and think about one tag question for each one of them, okay?